Morning, afternoon, or evening. This is Stephanie Joy with Joy Disability. You're about to see a replay of the live Q&A of a recent session. They are generally 1 to 2 hours long every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this YouTube channel. So I hope you get a little tidbit of information out of it. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you at 9 a.m. for short little workday shares that we put out there on a daily basis. Take care. Hey guys, can you hear me? A bunch of you guys here. Fred a Bug, you're here first, of course. You guys can hear me, right? Give a big old, yeah, I can hear you. Okay, thank you, La Lulu. I appreciate. Okay, I hope everyone has had a good week thus far. I'm out in Central PA, and I was going to come back tomorrow, but I heard it's going to be really bad storming, so I'm not sure that I really want to drive in that. Okay, so a bug. I was denied in Ohio, but moved to California. Since then, I've seen doctors, psych, to win at recon. So you won. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying I've seen them in order to improve my chances of winning? That might be what you're saying. Normally, it's a rubber stamp. That's the general perception, and I'd say it's true a lot of the time, unless you've done something pretty drastic to, change that. Since I'm now in a different state, could my claim get a thorough review? It's federal, so they're all really following the same steps. So while I do think individuals can vary, different like the medical expert in there, or in theory your adjudicator also, I don't know that it would be state-based. It would just be more like a, human differences and stuff. But fingers crossed for you. Heather W. Hello to you. My hearing for mental health and migraines was 3 weeks ago. You and my rep gave me some hope about possible favorable outcome. I found it today, my case closed and letter in the mail. That's always fun when that's all you know, right? Is that bad being sent closed and sent so fast? 3 weeks ago. Your hearing was 3 weeks ago. I don't think that's bad or good. A lot of people, I think, have a different perception that a long wait for a decision is more apt to be a denial. So I can't say for sure that's true either, although it tends to make me very nervous when that happens too. Heather goes on to say, I meant being closed and sent so fast. I know there's no crystal ball, no mail tomorrow, holiday, Juneteenth. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm sure you are. Just try to hang in there. Is a QDD or CAL possibly a factor? Compassionate allowance? Probably not on migraine. I was inpatient at 23 and I'm 61. Yeah, you just gotta hang in there. It shouldn't be too terribly long. And like you said, the letter's in the mail. If the letter is in the mail, then it's up in the electronic file, Heather, and your attorney can get it. So tell them to get in there and get it. Rat's Nest, good to see you. Was informed my adjudicator will be reaching out to schedule CE exams for physical and mental. How far out do they schedule out? Should I have my husband take off from work to drive me? I always think it's best not to drive yourself to the CEs. They do ask you how you got there, and now you've just confirmed that you are well able to drive 45 minutes or whatever it is, and that might be inconsistent with what you would really be able to do on a day-to-day basis, but they can use that, nonetheless. So I say if you can get a ride, absolutely do it. And sometimes they're scheduled out several weeks, and sometimes they're like 8 days away from the time they stamp the letter, and by the time you get it, it's 2 days away. I had a guy get his letter on the day of his CE, so obviously he had no idea. So usually they try to schedule out. I was just speaking to an adjudicator yesterday, and they wanted to know about a client's agreeability to a CE, and I said absolutely. And I said, could you please give it at least, have them scheduled out at least 2 weeks so that my client can make arrangements to get there. Because you could have physical therapy that day that you don't want to interrupt. You could have your specialist appointment with a neurologist that takes 6 months to get, and you don't want to miss that for a CE, of course, right? So that in that case, I would definitely seek to get that CE rescheduled if it falls on something important like that. Yeah, Rat's Nest. And she goes on to say, I only drive locally and occasionally. Right, because a lot of people, when they have particularly physical impairments, but sometimes mental, they are very limited in their driving. And often these CEs are not that close, right? I mean, they're just not. So if driving there would be inconsistent with how long you said you could drive in your function report, or anywhere else that kind of suggests that that's not something you can really do, don't become Superman or Superwoman and be able to drive an hour plus. It's an hour back after sitting in the office for the exam. So I would do whatever you have to do to get a ride, I think. That's just in you. Good to see you. 2 months from hearing, you had your hearing. My counselor told me yesterday my law office assistants requested all records. I don't know why ALJ wouldn't be mad at SSA field office and law offices for not getting these records way earlier. My case was filed April 2024. I hate to tell you this, Justin, but it's the claimant's responsibility first and foremost. The SSA seeks to assist. They might send out requests, but if your doctors didn't comply with it, it's your duty to kind of know that. If you have, I don't recall if you have a representative, Justin, but you said my counselor told me yesterday my law office assistants. Okay, so you do have probably an attorney representative or, a firm anyway. And you said 2 months from hearing, that would be you're having your hearing in 2 months. That is the time to get all the updates because you're always getting them. From the beginning of a case, from the time you file, not just what you report in your application, you're consistently keeping whoever the adjudicating body is at that level apprised of your new visits, new therapies, any procedures, new doctors on an ongoing basis. That's really what for your own best interest and the strength of your case, that's what you're going to want to be doing. So the ALJ isn't going to necessarily, they're used to cases not being up to par, but it's not a problem at this point if your hearing's two months away, at least not from the perspective of the ALJ, because there's a 5-day rule, not a 2-month rule. All your evidence is supposed to be in 5 business days before your hearing. And if for some reason something's not in, then you put in a letter. It's like our 5-day evidence letter, and that's got to be in 5 business days, which is really 7 or 8 days. So I'd go with 10 to be on the safe side, explaining the efforts you took to get it and why it's important that record is in there. It's a 5-day evidence rule. And we do it in every case, regardless. Justin Canuza, I'm not getting these records way earlier. My case was filed April 2024. Again, that's on you guys, really. The SSA is there to help, but it doesn't excuse your responsibility as a claimant. And that's in the POMs and elsewhere. Christina, good morning. La Lulu, greetings. Oh, greetings, ready to learn. Me too. Okay. Thanks, RD. He's confirmed. We can be heard. He or she. I always forget. Dimple. Hi, Dimple in Ohio. Hi, Beth Prince. Thank you all. Hello, Mississippi. Hey, Daryl. Art of practice. What are the possible scenarios when a claimant gets a federal court remand back to the ALJ for an old claim while their new claim is still at the reconsideration stage? What are the possible scenarios? Well, both can win. That's ideal, right? That means you get it all the way back because you get the federal case takes it all the way back, and the new case brings it all the way forward. But the new case is a good fallback in case the federal doesn't prevail, and then at least you have this new claim. So it could also be that all of them fail. It could be all of them win, all of them fail. Federal going back wins. Now, if that happens, well, if you got a federal remand and that judge awards it, you don't know whether he's going to award it back to your original onset date or something later. Feasibly, it could be a closed case where he decides that you were disabled for X amount of time, but now you've since recovered, and so you're going to have a closed period of award. Those drive me crazy. It's better than nothing, but it's really kind of a pain. Yeah. So it could be really any which way. So, but the great thing about filing a new, assuming you still have some DLI left after your ALJ denial. The great thing about filing a new, once you're out of appeals council, denied there, and going to FDC, is that you can file a new, and they can both be running simultaneously. So that's always a good thing. Art of practice goes on to say, for instance, will DDS still make a decision on the new claim at reconsideration, or will the two claims, they will be combined? Yeah, they should be merged. So I think maybe the reconsideration will get escalated up to the case that's at the back to the ALJ heading for hearing. They do like a consolidation, a merging. And sometimes they call it escalating it. Escalate the reconsideration, finish up the reconsideration, people, and then get it up to above. I had that recently, and not recently, like 5 years ago, but it's still open, even though we won on the new claim. The old claim was with an FTC attorney. I had the new claim. We prevailed on the new claim while the FTC was still going on. And the new claim only covered the day after the ALJ denial. That was what we put in there as our alleged onset date, the day after the ALJ denial for the new claim. So the day of the ALJ denial and before was part of the federal district court claim. And to this day, I still haven't been paid. Terrible. 5 years. And they wonder why we struggle. Ivy says, I have COPD. I'm sorry about that, Ivy. That's terrible. And type 2 sugar. So I guess diabetes. I wear a sensor in my arm. SSI turned me down 2 times. I'm guessing you're under 50. You look pretty young there, Ivy. Very nice picture. But remember, you have to prove that you can't do sedentary work, which COPD doesn't generally prevent you from sitting down, right? So that's what they're probably going at. That sedentary and or light work. Light work isn't heavy lifting. It's a little bit more standing and walking. It could be cashier, that kind of thing. But either way, you would have to, if you're under 50, you have to prove you can't do any of those. And that's very difficult to prove. Okay. Tara Lynn. Hi, Tara. 56 years young, self-employed, and now only able to work about 3 hours a day. And this is with breaks every hour. Net earnings around $500 a month. Why does the SSDI application ask if I work over 45 hours? Oh, because when we're self-employed, because we can kind of fudge around with our numbers, they don't just look to what your income is at $500 a month, because that could be net earnings after your business expenses. They look to your hours too, because you could be self-employed, not making that much money, but you're putting in 40 hours a week. And the 45 is because when it's self-employed and because we can arguably fudge a little bit, they need to see that we're really working not substantially. So like 10, 12 hours a week, that kind of thing. So if you're doing a lot more than that, it's not that you can't prevail. But, when you talk about, I always kind of suggest people consider when they're doing self-employment work, all the times that you take those breaks, even if you're not taking a calculated break, but it might take you an hour to do something that takes 5 minutes because it's really actually kind of all broken up, that you don't think of it that way. Then maybe it is really you only worked 5 minutes in that hour and not the whole hour. But it's something you really have to think about. Friend. Hi, Stephanie. Quick question regarding closed periods of disability. Oh, we just mentioned that, didn't we? At the initial level, 15 months now. Sorry about that. Can you request a closed period if you can work again full time? You know what? I'm not sure you want to request it, but if you feel you can work again, why don't you just do it? They will deny you if you're working SGA when they make the decision, and you're supposed to report to them if you have a pending claim. But if you start with under SGA work and see where it goes. That way your claim continues, and even if you do bump up to SGA because you're taking more shifts, you're feeling pretty good, they will deny you if they find out, which you're supposed to tell them, right? But you can appeal it because that full-time over SGA stint might just fail if it doesn't last at least 6 months, and that's kind of like a bright line rule, guys. Then you can argue later, now that you've popped back below SGA because it didn't work, that was a failed work attempt. And it doesn't have to interrupt the flow of that case appealing on upward. So I don't know if you were already back to work and if you were back to work full time and now you're over the 6 months, so you can't argue it's a failed work attempt, or it might be. I would, first of all, you're going to tell them and say, please give me please consider me for a closed period because I was not able to do this. And then, you can point out the medical evidence that shows it was worse then. Maybe you had a surgery and now you're improved, or you could do sedentary light work that you couldn't do before the surgery, give it a shot. But I wouldn't, short of having done the successful work attempt, I'd not do that. Feeling like you can work again full time, then why wouldn't you be, right? I would test it perhaps. Start with under SGA so you don't blow your case. We all get sometimes optimistic, right? And then I see it happen a lot, with people, and they go back to work and it doesn't last more than a few months because it really is hurting them, the amount of hours they're putting in that are, say, 30, 40 hours in SGA. Second phone, how you doing? I've received the DDS docs prior to my hearing. Seems the AIM calculations only used last 5 years, 3 of which I've been out due to disability. I thought they were meant to use the highest earning years. No, it depends I don't know if you're mixing up different, you're talking about to get to your primary insurance amount of what it would be. They usually used your top 35 years. But the ones that you've just had, you're not disabled yet. You haven't proven it. So those are counted as 0 years. Later on, if you get proven to be disabled for that prior to those years, those zeros no longer count as part of your calculation. Tara Lynn, I've not applied yet. Just trying to figure it out. Thank you for helping us. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, the self-employment, if you're plugging in 40 hours a week, you can't be disabled, and they do keep it trimmed because of that ability of us to just fudge with the numbers, make the 500 look, like that's what we're making, when really we had a revenue of 2,000, but we expensed it all out, which you can't do if you're a W-2. We got mileage, we got all sorts of goodies. The second phone continues on to say, going back 35 years, are they shorting me? No, probably not. And it's kind of like a calculation. It's not like someone's in there adding up the numbers. What is my, oh, RD, yeah, this is interesting, right? What is your opinion about SSA using AI? Well, SSA and everyone else has been using AI for decades in smaller fashion, so it's just kind of like a bigger piece now. I don't think AI is appropriate for a final conclusion on a case at all. I think there has to be a human involved. The impression many of us have is that the DDS, so on initial and recon, it's a checkbox system anyway. It's not really, I mean, for the adjudicator anyway. The medical expert doing the RFC has a lot of discretion in deciding what that medical doctor is going to come up with. I appreciate artificial intelligence in terms of organizing information, being able to search for certain terms so you make sure you find all those places where something is described as severe, for instance. So I think it will be excellent if it's improved upon. However, in my opinion, I think you always have to have a human mind behind it. What would be with 100% success rate of AI coming up with the right answer? I just don't. I don't know that I ever will. But I try to use, varying levels of AI to really find some things that might otherwise be easy to miss if you're looking at, say, a 5,000 page book of medical records. It can be really helpful. Daryl Smith. Hi, Daryl. Good to see you. I had CE exams 2 weeks ago. Should I send my military records to SSA? I would. I know SSA will get my VA record. Should I get my VA claim file, or will SSA get it? Also, VA is put me back brace records. If SSA has already gotten your VA records, and I got to tell you, I find it very confusing because there's so many different. I have clients who are like, well, some of my records are in the Army, blah blah blah, over there, and then some are. I'm like, oh my goodness, they don't even have it's very fragmented. And I find that really frustrating. If you know what they have, I know some of my guys have been, going and getting their blue button reports. And because there's two-factor authentication, sometimes they have to get this, themselves. And I will tell them, hey, we have up to March 30th of 2025. Can you get the next batch of the 31st to today? And then we'll get it in batches. And then because the reports that come out, because you want everything, because you don't want just a really tight synopsis. What I've been trying to do is extract I think it's called the care summaries and notes section, and it might be procedures, whatever, test results, because a lot of other things are just the reiterated demographics over and over again, So I try to sometimes make it a little cleaner for the adjudicator before I send it up, but not necessarily. I mean, you're trying to always send them everything you certainly can't be cherry picking, but I'm just trying to send them every visit, not like the reiteration of the same demographic stuff that comes up on every visit, because that's just like wasted redundancy. But I don't think it's a problem if you do that. I'm just trying to make their lives easier. Second phone says, should I ask lawyer to inquire on that for accurate monthly amount? I'll get no. I don't think so. I wouldn't be getting it from my people because I don't have the power to do the calculation. And it's not really part of the job. You can look in your Social Security earnings statement. Well, actually, you can't do it now that you have a pending claim, but go look at the one. Hopefully you downloaded one before you filed, your most recent one, and that will give you the estimate of what your disability amount would be, what your age 62 retirement would be, your age 63, 64, 67, and 70. If you waited till then to file for retirement, or if you got disabled as of the time you printed that last one out. And that'll give you a pretty close estimate. COLAs have since been applied if it's a couple years old, so it's actually going to be higher than it looks, but that's what I would do. You could call the field office, and they might give you the time and give you that, but that really was on your earnings statements over the years, your estimates. Because before you apply, if you go and get your earnings statement, it's going to have that estimate. Once you trigger an application, they remove the estimate. I'm not sure why. I guess because, I don't know, so much can happen, I suppose. Ivy's 54 years young. Looking good, girl. Okay, so 54. Remember I was saying about sedentary, Ivy? My guess is if they denied, it's because they found you could do light work and that you're not restricted to only sedentary. Remember, at age 54, you have a potential to grid out under that particular role for the 50 to 54-year-olds. That would be one, you can do no more than sedentary. So even if you can do sedentary, you can still potentially grid out. You just cannot be able to do more than sedentary. So you can't be able to do light or medium work. Light is probably what they nailed you at. That's the habit that they have when they want to deny. And you also have to prove that you can't do your prior jobs. So that's going to be any of those relevant jobs in the 5 years before the date of adjudication, unless you have a remote DLI in the past, and it's going to be 5 years before that date. And the last thing is that none of those skills you had are transferable to a different kind of job that would be within your physical capacities for sedentary or other. So those three things, if you can meet them. But my guess is, educated guess, not for sure, that they denied you saying you could do light work, in which case the grids don't apply. And you could do light work, which means you can also do sedentary work. So you need to prove that you can't do light work. That's generally 6 out of 8 hours on your feet and lifting up to 20 pounds occasionally during the day. So that's where you have to kind of thread your needle with your medical evidence development and treatment. And incidentally, I'm 54 years young, but we all start getting aches and pains, musculoskeletal, most of us. So if you have not been considering that, and you think about it and you're like, oh yeah, like how long can you stand for? And could you stand at a cash register, say? And if you're like, oh no, my back would be on fire within 35, 40 minutes or 20 minutes, or my hips or my ankles are bad or whatever it is, that is what you're going to want to get specialists for and bang that out. Start really aggressively going after that stuff, because that stuff is probably one of the strongest ways to prove we can't do light work. It has to be very clear that we can't do light work. It could be the fact, often it's because we can't be on our feet that long. It hurts. It just hurts. It is an uphill battle, of course, as always. There is a path. FLNC. Hi, Steph. If approved for disability, does it approve student loan forgiveness? Not really. It is my understanding that student loan is not forgiveness. It's the discharge that's always been around. It's not this forgiveness where, the newer one where they're just trying to forgive everybody, without reason. If you are 5 to 7 years diaried, and I'd have to look at the exact rule. I have a video on it someplace, though. And granted, that's a couple years old. I don't know that it changed, but it'd be worth checking to see if it did. If you are 5 to 7, I think, because have a lot of Social Security disability is not permanent. It's temporary. So they're not going to just forgive your loans if you don't have that kind of permanency expectation. So I think the MIND diary, medical improvement not expected, which would be that 5 to 7 years, might be one avenue to clinch it. I've been hearing from a lot of people who have been successful lately. So I think it's depending on what your diary date is, it's worth looking into. GC24 styles. 100% facts. Okay, let's get some facts. Some doctor offices ignore the SSA. Oh yeah, you are so right. That is 100% fact. Not 100% of the time, but they ignore the SSA and don't send you records. Get them and do it yourself if you find out. Absolutely, I agree with you. I do. And a lot of time it's the mental health counselors that seem to think that they don't have to do anything. So yeah, you got to stay on top of it. And the law says they have to provide. So, and that would be the HIPAA law, HIPAA access law. So we have videos on all those HIPAA requirements and the extent that your rights are enforced, which isn't very much. I don't think HIPAA or the OCR, Office of Civil Rights, has a lot of teeth, but it's better than nothing. And I would pursue it for sure. Daryl says, so should send all my medical records to SSA. I took some to CE exams. She took notes and made copies of others. Is that a good thing? A lot of CE examiners are not going to go through. If you bring a ton of medical records, they're not getting paid by the hour, so they're probably not going to read them. I often suggest taking a very pivotal record. And knowing which one that is not always easy, but if something is very clear, it could be an MRI that is very, very positive for cord compression, abutment of the nerve, impingement, all that kind of stuff, along with, anything else similar. But I always say, keep it under maybe 10 pages, because they're not going to want to look at it. And so if you want to have the best chance of them looking at something, make it good and make it short, is my general recommendation on that. Kelly Kreis. See, I say it right, don't I, Kelly? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. I think we already did that. Okay, Justin Hughes says he sent 5 pages of records to SSA hearing office, complained to my lawyer. You can't win no matter what you do. Someone will complain. I'm not really sure what that is about. I think your lawyer should be the one sending them in, first of all. You shouldn't be doing any of that. You might have to, if you have possession of something, you might definitely get it to your lawyer so they can look at it and decide if it's something that's supposed to go in. But I don't know why. Yeah, okay, this is interesting, Justin. I sent my portal records in, and SSA hearing office complained about it. an office doesn't complain, so it had to be an individual. So who complained about it and who they complained about it to, and what did they say? I do know an ALJ discussed this with me when we were talking about portal records versus the HITMER that the OHO office itself can initiate if you're have an arrangement with SSA, usually bigger health networks, for the HITMER, HITMER, where the SSA, because it has your signed release already, the 827, can go in there and grab your records at any time. It's really awesome. And they prefer that version of the presentation of your records over the portal. And the ALJ that I was speaking to told me that, I think I actually heard it from two, that the portal records, they have so many pages because every visit, they repeat all the historical stuff for every visit. So like one visit is a 50-page document when your progress note is this big. So I get that would be frustrating. It's just that, I know we do send in portal records. We send in official records when we get them. We send in portal records. It's nice if we can just send in the progress notes of the portal records. It's just that it's not the portals generally do not let you say, give me all the progress notes of all the visits between X and Y date. They give you all or nothing, and that's frustrating. I can go and individually download each and every visit progress note, and that takes time, and it's a pain. So I really wish they'd get on it in terms of a better software for the user to pick and choose. I wish they would do that for test results too. I want all the test results from X date to Y date. I don't want to have to individually go in and download them all. I mean, it's an administrative nightmare. I'm taking up really valuable time that, one could be doing actual legal work. So, but I will still send in portal records because, first of all, we send them in on initial and recon to keep that adjudicator busy, because if he or she hasn't been ordering them with a HITMER, I want those in there. I want them to know we're alive and we're paying attention. So we do it. And they can't tell you not to, because it's medical evidence. It's your records. It's just a different presentation. Pocket changey. Good morning. I received a post-entitlement confirmation notice hearing letter. Can you please explain what this might mean? Post-entitlement confirmation notice hearing letter. I don't, because that doesn't really make sense to me. You have a hearing letter, meaning you're heading to hearing. And then you got a letter. Who'd you get it from? Was it from the SSA field office? Was it from the payment office? Was it from the Office of Hearings Operations? Who did you get it from? Otherwise, I really wouldn't know the answer. Post-entitlement suggests that you've been found entitled to benefits. Confirmation always sounds good, right? Notice, again, it sounds like, but then you say it's a hearing letter. So I don't know. I'm sorry. RD's having rotator, whoops, be nice if I could click this on. Rotator cuff surgery on Monday. This is scheduled within the 12-month time frame. I also have bladder mesh complications. Oh, I know you and I have talked about this. Well, the rotator cuff is within 12 months, the surgery, but you have to recover from the rotator cuff surgery too, and you're probably going to have physical therapy, right? After the surgery, that tacks on another few months. So by then, maybe it will be over 12 months, so that the shoulder is now part of your definitely 12 plus months disability, as opposed to something more shorter term. So not all is lost, RD. And the bladder mesh thing, we've talked about that, right? That's really bad, in my opinion. Okay, YouTube user. So we got a generic here, guys. Thanks for popping in. I'm just busting your chops. Attorney was paid his 25% off of $32,000. Okay, so he got $8,000. We were awarded $15,000. The $8,000 was taken from the 15. That's over 50%. No, if your gross was $32,000, 25% of that would be $8,000. That's what he gets. You should be getting $32,000 minus 8. What is that? $24,000. So you need to find out what happened to the difference between $24,000 and $15,000. I don't know. And COLAs are automatic, so the person received their COLAs. It's just automatic. It's like an automatic run on all of us, whether we're disabled or not, pending or not. COLAs get automatically calculated every year on every single person with a Social Security history. That's how they give us our estimates that change every year. So yeah, the 25% off, if what you're saying is clear to me, if you have a $32,000 back benefits, 25% of the back benefits would be $8,000, and that would be going to the attorney. The balance should be going to the prevailing claimant. Did the prevailing claimant have other offset? Did they have an outstanding IRS bill, school, alimony, child support? We just had a little shindig on that one. Some of the garnishments that could go on. So you just got to check that out. But your award letter should tell you exactly where the money started from, 32, and what happened. Okay. Sometimes the attorney letter that describes that comes in a second letter, but put them all together. And sometimes there's a correction letter. La Lulu Z. Question. During stage 3 recon, if we have prescription changes, by the way, RX, guys, is usually what we consider to mean prescription, not just refills, or new first-time test scan lab for documented impairment, how should we report to or update the DS if not yet represented? Prescription changes, if it's indicative of more severity, like an upping of a painkiller or, or mental health medication, that usually means that the symptoms are not well controlled. I would advise her. You could send a letter. You could fax it in. You should have hopefully a barcode, since you probably don't have access to any electronic file. You can call her. I just like to have everything in writing and proof that it got to them. So you can tell her about it like you would have done in your other reports if they were coming due, but they've already been done. Same thing with tests, scans, labs. If a test is negative, I wouldn't even bother, because it's not going to help you. If it's, like they took an MRI and it shows there's nothing remarkable going on, it's not really supportive of that body part being troubled. So they're going to presumably get them anyway, because if they are ordering the records from Dr. Jones, who ordered the prescription, ordered the test, it all comes out in Dr. Jones' records, when they order them, or if you order them and whichever way you guys are doing it. RD says she's using AI to help with the bladder log. I'm curious. You should share the details of how you do that. What does that mean? Daryl Smith, the VA claim file. I got you, Daryl. Has the VA C&P exam reports. Yeah. I usually have my guys go where they have to go to get the ratings and the C&P exam reports and all that, which is not generally found in the regular download, right? Although I'm just still getting used to that blue button report. So, because it didn't used to arrive to us like that. So I have to feel that out a little bit more. But I do, first of all, like you said, if you're 100% P&T, you get a little priority in theory. I've seen that fall to the wayside at times, but I feel like I have like 100% P&T coming into the fold this month already. There's a lot of you guys out there. So hopefully all will go well. Me, Heidi. Good to see you, Heidi. In the final non-medical review on initial, okay, since May 24th, called the local office and they said we were approved. Oh, yeah. 21-year-old son, ASD2, intellectual delay and schizophrenia. Thank you for your help. Oh, it was definitely my pleasure, and I'm so glad that worked out. I'm very happy for you. That's really good news. This is Lulu, not to be confused with La Lulu Z. So here's Lulu. She says, if you are partial approved, and your case was picked up by federal quality review, can they change your onset date because SSA don't want to pay back pay? Well, in theory, that's not why they change an onset date. It's because they say the evidence was not persuasive until a certain other point later on down the road. And that's not horribly unusual. I don't like it. Sometimes I just feel like they do that on initial and recon inappropriately, because they know that people are going to be fearful about appealing it, like looking a gift horse in the mouth to appeal it. But it is what it is, and it's just something that, unfortunately, we kind of have to live with unless we have very firm evidence. And it's like, how could they have found a later onset date? I was in the coma 3 months before then. You know what I mean? If something's really, really obvious. And objective, really. But so federal quality review. Now, were you on initial and recon? You said partial approved. I don't. What stage did you go to? I don't think you said that in here, right? Like initial, recon, or ALJ hearing. If the federal quality review, they usually send it back for the decision maker to do something that they didn't do. They missed a step. So it's my understanding. So the federal quality review people don't actually do the changing, but they send it back. And now the person adjudicating it might say, oh, yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, I guess I have to deny or change the date. So, but yeah, they can certainly adjust the onset date. I mean, you said it partial approved, so that makes it sound like you didn't get your onset date you wanted anyway. Second phone. My lawyer has asked me to reproduce these medical source statements, to produce these medical statements to my treating doctors for hearing. Seems so generic, general. Oh, yeah, that's just like preschool. But it's last minute to ask such I'm annoyed, wish they were more like you. Ah, well, that's really sweet. Yeah, I don't really like the generics. I think it's less useful. And gosh forbid your doctors don't know what the answer they give means in the legal field that it's going to be seen by. And now their answer, which they think is quite limiting, yeah, it limits you to sedentary, but sedentary means not disabled. They don't know that, right? And you have to send it in under the rules, no matter what, good, bad, or ugly. You have got to send in every medical evidence pertaining to your disability allegations, even if you don't like them. So I always say tread cautiously. Do not ask that doctor certain things unless you kind of know what the answer is going to be. And we have our methods for that. But yeah, I say tread cautiously, and sometimes it's better not to get them in. If their medical records are and the objective diagnostics and everything are articulated enough, you really shouldn't even need the medical source statement. But of course, as we all know, a lot of the medical professionals do not do a very good job recording, and that's why sometimes we're seeking those additional things. Tara Lynn says, is it okay to upload a brief letter expounding my disabling situation when I submit my online application? That's going to be something they're going to be asking. You're going to have, shortly after you apply, Tara, you're going to be getting a request for the function report. That's the SSA 3373. And that's where all the relevant questions are and where you can try to be conservative on space. They don't want to read a book. But there's all these different questions. And then there's a remarks section if you want to add a little bit. I would suggest doing it there versus uploading a well-written letter that might actually, the fact that you could do it might belie some of your claimed incapacities or difficulties. So every case is different though. But your function report is where you're going to put in all those descriptions of how these things disable you and what your activities of daily living, now that you're not working full time, what they entail and how they're not normal. I also have pictures not in my medical record. Should I send those? I don't know what they'd be pictures of. If it's an x-ray or a film or an image, you want the report, not the picture. Because that adjudicator is not a radiologist. He can't read a picture. He can read a report from someone who is actually licensed to interpret those images. Daryl Smith says, I have over 3,000 pages of medical records. That's not unusual when it's VA, right? Would SSA get upset if I send a large number of records? The VA is putting me in a back brace. This is new. Should I update SSA with new VA records? I say when in doubt, give it to them. You probably don't know what they already have, though. And that's one of the frustrating things about unrepresented people anyway, not being able to see what the DDS has already succeeded in getting, like VA records up through March 30th. Then you don't have to send in going all the way back because they're already there. So it's not really, it's kind of hard to answer that one, Daryl. I would say if there's no way to find out, then that's their fault that you are unaware, you can't see what they've gotten. And so perhaps you can upload it. This is what they get, right? Now, you could call the adjudicator and ask, do you have my VA records, and up till what day do you have them? You can go get the order for the back brace and or the visit where it's described that you have the back brace, and you could upload just that one report if you wanted. But again, if there's all these dates since the last time they got VA records for you, yeah, you kind of want to get those up there. And unfortunately, you're blindfolded, not being able to see in the electronic file. Tara Lynn says, is it okay to include, oops, we already did that one. Lionel. Hi, Lionel. Good to see you. Lionel Mandrake. I was denied on my reconsideration appeal. I'm very sorry about that, Lionel. The denial letter did not include important medical records. The denial letter does not include, I think you're talking about that little explanation page where they said report received from so-and-so. Well, if you didn't get them that stuff, yeah, they're not going to have it if your doctors didn't send it to them. I went to the SSA office with the missing records and reopened my reconsideration. That wouldn't be a reopen of your reconsideration. That would be an appeal for an ALJ hearing, which is where you'd be going next, okay? Unless you're telling me something different, but generally you would be appealing it. But it sounds like you're saying I was denied on my reconsideration appeal, so you were already in reconsideration and you were denied. Yeah, you would be appealing for an ALJ hearing. And I don't suggest going to the SSA office to give anything because somehow those records often disappear and they never get attached to your file. Because remember, the SSA office is not the one that's reviewing the medicals. It has to go to a totally different office. So I would follow what the adjudicator said. Here's the barcode. Here's the fax number with the barcode to get us the information. I would prefer that than going into the field office and trying to get some staffer there to take them, copy them, upload them, scan them, and, just relying on people to do additional work for you when you can't prove that they did it. At least if you do it, you know it's done and you have your confirmation. Speaking of faxes, guys, digital faxing is really great. So if you have records that you downloaded from, your medical office or whatever, you don't have to print them, ink, all that business, and mail them. You store them digitally on your device, your computer, and then you can digitally fax them. There's all sorts of fax companies online. It's great. And that's how you can get them to that fax number. It's like usually a scanning number, goes right to your file if you have the barcode page right on front like they tell you to do, and that's how you're going to get a fax confirmation. And then I would actually probably like within a week or a few days call the adjudicator and say, I just wanted to confirm that you got this from me. It was faxed to you and I have a confirmation here on June 6th, and I just want to make sure you have it in your file. I would do that because, again, you can't go in and see the electronic file and see it sitting there like I could do. Lionel's saying, again, that the SSA reopened my reconsideration. That would be extremely unusual when they generally say your avenue is appeal. But stranger things have happened, Lionel, so I'll go with you on that. Daryl's saying that the VA updated my disability for neck and shoulders. It would have the new CMP exam report. Yeah, I would do that. I would. Yeah, I would. Never. Better to have, I'd say if you're going to err in either way, it's better to have too much than too little. So if you're trying to be all polite and not send it up because you don't want to overburden them with too many records, tough noogies, because that's what they're getting paid to do. They're getting their full-time salary, working the same 8 hours a day. God bless them, but that's the job. So I wouldn't take a risk of weakening my case because I don't want to overburden the adjudicator who's going to decide my future. Okay. GC24 says, so the SSA will deny a 54-year-old claimant by giving a light work. Yep. Not always, of course. I mean, we often, probably usually win the 54-year-old, but it's definitely a measure. Light work RFC, but when the person turns 55, could potentially grade out, correct. So why deny the person whether they'll be approved at 55? Because they won't be approved till 55. That's a whole year of benefits, right? Because remember, whenever they find the onset too, GC, is when the 5-month waiting period occurs. They're not going to give you something that you haven't met the law for. Once you are sufficiently disabled, which doesn't happen until 55, I know it seems frustrating, right? But it does make sense, even if we don't love it. Jay Vaughn. Hi, Jay. Good morning. Update, my OTR was denied. Now the OHO, Office of Hearings Operations, guys. And by the way, OTR is on the record request for them to review it for a potential award without having to go to hearing. So his OTR was denied, and now the OHO, which is the judge's office, is still scheduling me for a hearing in July. That is the norm. Those OTRs are not common, particularly when they would have given you the OTR, in theory, earlier on their own volition if they thought it was OTR worthy. Question, what am I missing? I have MRI, PCP note, doctor's note, psychiatrist letter. I don't know what you're missing. Are those good pieces of evidence? Do they point to disabled, or do they point only to impaired but not fully disabled? It really is very, very, very fact specific. All of our cases, every single one. It's the person's impairments, but it's also how does the record show whether it's severe or not? And if it's severe, is it severe enough to prevent all jobs, even the simplest, most easiest minimum wage jobs, or is it not quite that severe? So it really is, guys, very, very fact specific. And the quality of those medical records and how they're written by the medical professionals is potentially the single most important factor. Mr. P, good to see you. Hello. I'm applying for SSDI. I have a hefty overpayment from when I was on SSI. Oh, I think we talked about this, right, Mr. P? Should I try to do the waiver while I'm applying or wait until after a decision on SSDI? That, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe do it? I can't really say. I don't know your specific facts. Yeah. I mean, if you wait to do it, they're probably going to take it from your SSDI back benefits. So maybe you should do it now. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. I'm curious about what other practitioners might suggest, if any are watching. Lionel, you're welcome, Lionel. I appreciate that. That's really sweet. Very, very nice. GC says, the depression that follows through this process can be very detrimental. You will learn who are family and true friends. I know. I know. That's true with a lot of things in life, right? People that you thought were true friends that disappear for one reason or another when it seems kind of inappropriate. But I'm not disabled, but I've seen it myself, I just look at it and say, well, not really what they thought they were, but it is what it is. And I know with the depression, and you're right, it can be very aggravated because it's stressful. And I think stress is a depression creator or aggravator. The financial stresses, the pain of the impairments, the relationships like you're talking about, it is. It is a lot. So hopefully as everybody else has a source of strength that they draw on that helps them keep their heart and soul going in the right direction. So RD says he asked artificial intelligence, AI, to do a monthly Google Sheet with the time slots. I can check the time and add notes when I use the bathroom. I then can have them calculate how much bathroom use for me. Oh, so it's like a spreadsheet, but AI made it for you? Is that kind of how it is? That's pretty cool. Tara Lynn says she's following up here on the self-employment. Husband and I co-own our business. My role has dwindled due to my disability. He now does the vast majority. Perfect. Do they look down on this? No, but you better be careful about how you're doing your tax returns. I have seen, I think I have a video on this from like 3 years ago. Sometimes family co-owned businesses, they put all the earnings under one social security number. If that social security number is yours, that could be SGA, although you said you're only reporting 500 for yourself. I would definitely take note of how reduced your hours are. Another problem is that sometimes it'll be like all the income goes under, say, the husband, just to be traditionally sexist here. And the wife who's doing 50% of the work never gets earnings credited to her social security number because they felt, well, we're just a unit, so what difference does it make when it goes under? It's a huge one because now she's not insured for SSD at all because 5 years passed since she started doing the self-employment and then she became disabled, and none of those years of self-employment are credited to her because he got them all. So that is not, in my opinion, a wise move. I mean, yes, the IRS is getting the same monies, sure. So it's not like they were doing it to, hide monies from the IRS or anything like that. It was just a simplicity thing in their mind. But they forgot that your social security number and what you report as your income on your own Schedule C is what's going to give you your credits. It's the one that's going to create a higher social security primary insurance amount for you, which is the thing that you're going to be relying on for your SSD amount and or later your SSR, Social Security Retirement. No, if your role and your hours has dwindled to a pittance because of anxiety, which is an impairment, and everything, any others if you have with physical, that's actually walking the walk of what you're claiming. So that's good. Okay. Hockett says, SSA sent the message, post-entitlement appointment confirmation notice. Okay, I thought maybe you were missing a word in there. Yeah, so you got to show up, and then you're going to learn about it. I'm wondering, was it SSI Pocket? Because then that would be your perk appointment, perhaps. It could be on the phone. I suppose in theory it could be in person. Perk, P-E-R-C. It's when they're going to figure out your finances, your living arrangements, to see what offsets have to come off of SSI, if any. So you're going to want to be prepared for that, okay? If that's SSI, and that's usually what that would be. Yeah. In fact, post-entitlement appointment confirmation. Well, we're missing an R in there, but probably a perk. If it's SSI Pocket and not SSD. SSD, you don't have to. It's not needs-based. It's insurance being paid, so that people don't have to prove that they're poor or being given money that would reduce what the SSI needs to give them. Silver Monster. I was denied an initial, and now I'm in the process of recon. I was sent a second function report to fill out, which I did. That's very usual now, guys. With most recon appeals being denied, do you think it would have been better to not have sent the form back, get a faster denial, and maybe a faster path to hearing? I don't at all. I think, can't say how much we went on initial and recon, but it could be as much as 50%. So, and it's because if you use that time to build your case and get them more evidence, that same evidence is going to be there for the ALJ hearing, the ALJ judge to consider. But you increase your chances of being, if the stats are the same way that they were before, 15%. And I got to get a new waterfall chart, guys. When I do, I'll do a video on it and show you. 15%, you got a 15% chance of flipping it. That's the overall percentage of chance. But if you actually worked on your case and really went to town on the medical evidence and getting updated diagnostics and everything else and figuring what law you have to follow to get to win, you might be, maybe now your recon chance is 70%. Because there's going to be some that are like 1%. So that's where they get the average of the 15, right? or the median or whatever it is. So I don't think you should waste your recon at all. We use that time, and it's probably why we have such a very incredible recon award rate. Also, Lionel's being very specific. They opened my reconsideration, not LJ. That is exceedingly rare, exceedingly rare. Very surprising, but that's good. That means you still have the opportunity at reconsideration. But I would like to think that someone's getting reprimanded who gave a recon decision and then didn't do the job to get it. And we see that a lot. I mean, it's wrong, but it's not unheard of. But we're always required to appeal. That's pretty cool. I don't know what that's about. Maybe there was something else a little underhanded. I don't know. But use it, Lionel, and maybe you can get that recon flipped, or the initial now, because now you're on recon just dealing with overturning the initial. Sunflower 9999 says, I have severe interstitial cystitis. We have talked about this. It's such a difficult condition. I'm so sorry. And I read it's not in the blue book of listed impairments. How does this affect my chances of approval? It doesn't. I also have osteoarthritis and depression, anxiety. You want to be treating for all of those. You say you have severe interstitial cystitis. I know we have some, I don't know what it's called though. We were talking before about bathroom journals. How often are you in the bathroom and for how long? I know we've talked about the IC and some of the best ways to get the evidence. You want to be, I would think, communicating with your IC specialist a lot about how, keeping them kind of apprised, maybe through the portal messaging of how, and every time you visit, of course, about how frequently you have to go to the bathroom, how utterly painful it is. I don't know if you're having installations or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, give me 1 second. I just want to see. There is a palms on it, I think, or something like that. Sorry, guys. This will be cut out when I do the replay. Interstitial cystitis. I can't even spell. Let's see if something comes up. Okay, look at this. I'm just popping it in here. This POMS, it is DI24555.001. It's called Evaluating Cases Involving Interstitial Cystitis, SSR 15-1P. And the latest presentation of this particular thing I'm looking at was June 9th of 2025. So maybe I'll even do a video on that one, because I have so much sympathy. I mean, I have sympathy for everyone who's disabled. And the pain problems are often the worst. I see it's just, there's like no relief. It's just terrible. And I'm so sorry. But go to that. Just do a job search, a Google search or what have you, ssa.gov, then just put in like DI01, and you'll see what this latest thing has to say. Oops, where am I? Okay. And osteoarthritis, you're going to want to make sure that you're treating with a specialist for that. Everything really well documented all the time. Updated diagnostics, Sunflower. You should be having a depression, anxiety. In an ideal world, you're going to have a mental health professional on that, not just your primary care. All of this, of course, then falls back onto your vocational profile, which a significant portion of that is your age. But I know one of my first IC cases was it was like 28, and we had to go to hearing. It was a long haul, as it usually is with young people, but we did prevail. That was a long time ago, one of my earlier cases. First name, last name. I heard it has gotten harder to get approved since COVID. Is this true? Not in my opinion. I haven't found that to be the case. There have been some rule changes like back in 2015 that made it harder, but that was before COVID. Can you believe COVID's 5 years along now? Okay. Sunflower again. Regarding grid rules, is there an easy way to understand this as it relates to transferable skills? Transferable skills is one of the hardest things to comprehend, even for those of us up here that do it, swim in this pool every day. 55, skilled work as a nurse and manager. Thank you. Those manager skills are what they're going to try to find transferable to an easier job. Sunflower, if you want me, I don't know if you have a lawyer or a rep. If you do not and you want me to look at it, I think I put the link in there. You can fill out that evaluation and then mention your name here, and I'll know, and just say you told me to, or Stephanie told me to reach out directly, and then they'll get it to me straight away, because your work history report, it is so important how you handled that and how you articulated it. It's really, really especially important for people who are within the grid, say the over 50s. So anyway, feel free to reach out. I will be here all the rest of the day after this and possibly in the morning. And if it's really storming, I'm not driving back to Stroudsburg. I might stay till Saturday. I heard it's going to be really torrential. And it's like a 2.5 hour drive, so I don't really want to drive in that. I'll be with my husband, but he doesn't want to drive in it either. RD, thank you. Yes, you are so welcome. Hey, Pocket, you're very welcome. Okay, we're getting down to the bottom here. GC24 says, guys, if you have questions, pop them in there. Because as you know, if it dries up, I'm more than happy to leave it an hour and a half instead of 2 hours. Sometimes we go 2.5 hours, but the aim is no more than 2, but it's hard to say goodbye sometimes. So GC says, how does a unsuccessful division of vocational rehab job training, unsuccessful division attempt, you went to VR, vocational rehab, and it was unsuccessful, could help a claimant's medical impairments evidence? I think so, GC, because usually they've helped you train. They've tried to fit you in a job they thought you had the best chance of being successful at, and it still was too much. I would make sure to document with the doctor when you're doing the VR, as you're going through working and then you're messaging your doctors and occasional appointment stuff. I would be describing to them the difficulties you're having doing the job that you think might lead to unsuccessful. Now, if you've already been unsuccessful and you're no longer doing the VR, it could all be there anyway. Maybe you did complain to your doctor. What does the vocational rehab documentation say? Sometimes they'll say something like, not able to. I've had them outright reject people because they think they're not able to walk safely and it's too much of a liability issue. And that would be an inability to be on your feet safely up to 2 hours in an 8-hour day, which means you can't even do sedentary work, because sedentary work is not all sitting. There's an expectation there's going to be up to 2 hours a day. You have to actually get up, maybe go to a supervisor's office or cross the room to get a piece of paper or use the copier, even if you have a desk job. So fortunately, the SSA does recognize that, yes, you have to be able to do some level of walking even for a sedentary job. Now, I don't know what your specifics are there, GC, but I think an unsuccessful vocational rehab job training attempt is helpful in and of itself, but it could also show, like, if there's little nuggets of comments in there, that could be good. Luke Rogers. Oh my God, you sound like you're from Star Wars. Oh, he's talking to Sunflower. I don't want to intervene in that little conversation. M. Williams. Good afternoon, Miss Joy. You too, M. Williams, our successful claimant visitor, who's now a beneficiary, right? Sunflower, you are welcome. Okay, we're doing good, guys. We're all set. I think we can split for the week. Be back next week. Oh, and by the way, I am changing the 9 o'clock to noon. Till the 9 o'clock, if any of you guys watch the daily show, if you will, of the videos, I'll get to you, Gray. I see that you just popped something up. And Nikki, I'm moving it to 12. I'm trying it. I feel like it might be better. It might be easier for me. That's not the full reason, though. I think maybe 9 o'clock is too early for some people. And I know it's still there and it's notified and stuff like that, and people can see it later. But I don't know. It was just something that I kind of thought to do, and I don't know. Hopefully it'll be fine. So some of the intros to the videos still refer to 9 o'clock, but that's changing. So just know that it's going to be at 12, probably within a week or so. So Gray says, mental status exam was over a month ago, still no answer. Online is saying still on step 3. File for medical reasons not sure why I had a mental exam anyway. 57-year-old male, 30 plus years working for a company. Did you ever say in any of your function report or application that you do pain or stress or anything, you have anxiety or even mild depression or issues with memory or concentration? Like, a lot of times when we have pain, Gray, we cannot concentrate as much, right? So concentration has to do with the ability to do high-skilled jobs. So if you had 30 years at one job, maybe it was a skilled job and not an unskilled job, and it will be relevant. So yeah, it could definitely be relevant. If you want me to take a look at it, Gray, if you don't have representation and give an overall look on it, do what I was just telling Sunflower. You can, I think it was Sunflower, just mention your screen name here, fill out that eval, and if you say that, Stephanie told me to send this in and she was going to call me, then they'll know to get it right over to me, okay? And it won't go through the normal kind of review we have to do first. Nikki says, hi, Nikki. Does vocational educational rehab, like going to school part-time, hurt a claimant's case? Even if the claimant has multiple areas of adjustments like extended test time, allowed notes, recording? You just hit the nail on the head, Nikki. If you have 4 official accommodations and you want them to be kind of like in a letter where they've promised you these accommodations, that help show that you need accommodations. And a job where you need to have accommodations to perform it is not one that's performed competitively in a competitive work environment, and it's not supposed to count within the jobs that they can consider. So it's kind of like a twofer. You're proving that you need accommodations, and that kind of work is showing that that's not equatable to gainful activity, so to speak. Part-time is better than full-time, so that's good too. I would think that online is better than not online, but I think there could be some discrepancies there. But those, you said adjustments, but I think you mean accommodations, I think is something that you want to make sure you have documented from the school. I think it could be helpful because for you to succeed, or whoever you're talking about, if it's not you, you need to have all these special things that the other workers, which is the students, is not getting. Daryl says, if SSA consultative exam examiner wanted to help you with VA disability, would SSA look at that as wrong? I am 100% permanent in total. She looks at my records. Once she was done with SSA questions, she started talking about my VA disability for aid and attendance. Would that be a problem with SSA? No, I don't think so. I mean, aid and attendance can kind of show a need for significant help just in regular ADLs, much less a job, because technically jobs, we're not supposed to be needing excessive supervision or assistance. We're supposed to be able to do the job. So if one needs extra help, that can be like we were just talking to Nikki about an accommodation. It's no longer in a competitive work environment or something that could be switched, to be interpreted that way if you get the right documentation. So I don't think that's bad. I mean, remember, she was hired by them to give this opinion. Dimple says, I found an app that shows barometric pressure and has a pain diary included. Fascinating. Isn't it? Technology is so interesting. I've been trying to keep this updated, and I believe the info can be downloaded. Just want to share. So you can find out if barometric pressure on your high pain days, right, Dimple? If that happens to coincide with when there's higher barometric pressure, is that what we're kind of thinking? It's pretty cool. Lulu Z says, when submitting online evaluation, in which section, online evaluation, or on what line should we add our? Oh, you know what? In any of the comments, wherever it'll fit. There's some places where you can type narrative. Okay, yeah, because then when, Liz or anybody else looks at it, they're going to see, oh, Stephanie talked to them, but she's listening anyway. But it'll give a heads up. And it's not, most people have to just go through the regular review. I can't call everybody, but that's why I call you out when I see that it might be something that would just come to me anyway. Hi, Maeve. I just got a jury summons. Oh, fun, right? Actually, I always wanted to sit on jury. I know I can't sit in court. Should I tell him about my claim or just ask my new doctor for a letter of excuse? She doesn't know me as well as my old one. Yeah, I think the jury people generally require that. They're not going to just take your word for it. You probably have to do that. And just filing for Social Security disability isn't going to do it either. So I think a direct letter from your doctor saying she's not able to sit more than brief periods. So she wouldn't be able to sit through jury, because that's a long day. Even if you get booted, like I always get booted. I really want to sit through one though. I do. All right. GC says, do you need an appointment to take medical files to your local SSA office? Okay, GC, I always recommend nobody ever goes to their local field office. They take little notes about how you look and how savvy you are, and that you're not with a cane or in a wheelchair, and that you had made all these copies, and you sound like a very good, capable secretary. So I don't think anyone should go in there. Because if you look presentable, it's going to be probably recorded as such on these little contact forms I have, and I've seen them later on in the file. So, and the SSA office is not reviewing those medicals. That is the DDS or the OHO. So get them there. Follow the letters where they give you the barcode and the fax number, and do it that way. And again, if you have online faxes, a lot of these places allow you a free one every month, or something very affordable. I mean, I use massive faxing, so we pay a lot more, but that's different, obviously. Some of these companies have a free amount they let you do. So you just want to make sure you get them scanned in, pretty much. Or you can mail them to whatever they said in that letter. And if you don't know what that is, ask the adjudicator to send you another one. They will. And do the normally scan them in, making copies, and return the originals to you. I don't know what they do anymore, because I would think so. You certainly can demand it, but I don't know that they necessarily, I mean, I don't know because it's not something I ever recommend people do. I just don't. Because remember, you go in there, well, you said you have an appointment, so that's good, but all right, scratch that. Gray says, I take meds for depression and anxiety and issues of short memory issues, no problems with long term. There you go. Is that what we were just talking about, Gray? Like, why do they give me a mental exam? Because you just described mental limitations. That can only help your case. It's not going to clinch it necessarily. That will depend on a lot of other things, but they're just doing their job. You know, you might have forgotten to say that was an impairment, and they see it splattered all over your doctor's notes. Lily says, I hope to work 1 to 2 hours a day, less than TWP. Good. Can this affect my ability to be accepted to Medicare at 24 months? No. If you're disabled, SSD, it'll be after 24 months of payments, the value of the payments, not because there is a 5-month waiting period that you don't get paid. So technically, in some instances, it's like 29 months. So you got to do the math on that. But yeah, no, part-time, that's fine. Under TWP, under SGA. But of course, you know, there's a TWP super safe, right? All right. Lily goes on to say, if one logs in the hours below TWP on the SSA website, can this still trigger a CDR if one is in mind status? Well, I think still CDRs can come from other. I'm just trying to think through this question. If you're working under TWP, I want to say it's not that you can't be CDR'd when you're in TWP. You just can't be. They can't consider the work you're doing to find that you're just not disabled. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm not going to have a firm answer on this, Lily. I don't think it's a big deal. You are in TWP, so the work is not supposed to be used as the reason. CDRs can be for other reasons. It could be someone reported that you were doing something, or it could be a new treatment protocol came out and it happens to apply to your impairment and they want to know if you're improved, maybe you took the treatment or whatever. I mean, in theory. But some of it's also going to depend on your vocational profile, your age, and those rules. So there's so many factors that but you're under TWP. I mean, you can't do much better than that. And short of, I don't know, doing something really, really crazy as a part-time job that completely defeats and shows that you were not truthful in your claims. That's the only thing. But I suspect that's not the case. That's very rare. Oh, Daryl, thank you. I appreciate you. Yes, barometric. Yeah, Maeve, I know, right? Serving on a jury. I always wanted to too. And I always get the boot once they hear you're a lawyer. Sometimes I get a boot from the side that I would probably be leaning towards. So I never make it that far. I'm always booted the first day. But it is what it is. It was always fun picking juries. I used to do jury work. Litigation. That was a whole nother lifetime ago, long before SSD work. That part was kind of. And Maeve said she was booted for knowing too much. Yeah, they don't really want any smarties up there. No offense to everybody who got accepted. That's not what we're saying. Yeah. Colette says, hello. In regards to the work history, is it okay that I was a manager for 10 years, went to self-employment for 6 years, went back as a receptionist part-time, and was fired because of GPS? I don't know what GPS is. Isn't that what tells you gives you directions? Continued. If that is course of the past 17 years, will it show that I tried something less than I was once able to do? Here's what I think. First of all, the manager stuff is no longer going to be in your. She was a manager for 10 years, but it is before the past relevant work period, so it's not going to count. Self-employment for 6 years, that is what, well, it depends. Was that 6 years of self-employment in your past relevant work period? So you have to figure out that period. And then was that self-employment in there? The older stuff, it shouldn't even be noted, although I know on the work history they say the 5 years before your alleged onset date. But in the end, they're not even going to be able to look at it if it's the date of adjudication is the 5-year look back period, which it is for most people. But they don't know which group you fall into, which is why the form is very generic and just it asks for more, because some of the people are going to need to give that more. You went back as a receptionist part-time and was fired because of, again, GPS, I don't know what that is. Part-time, were you under SGA as that receptionist, Colette? Because if you were, that will not count as past relevant work either. So it could be you have no past relevant work, in which case they cannot attribute any skills for you that would be transferable. So that could be a good thing. GC says, I'm not taking those records. I will have them send that envelope because it's a lot of documents and I can't afford the cost. Yeah, I get that. If you don't have I have this amazing scanner. It's probably like a $500 scanner, which is not a big, huge commercial one, but it's probably not used by people that aren't in a business of having to scan things. Obviously, I scan everything and I shred everything. So mine is a Fujitsu. I'm just saying, I've had one. I think it's my second one in like 15 years. I think I went green for the purposes of, shredding. I used to have all these files all over the place. It was crazy, big racks, and then I started going green, and I scanned and shredded everything, and it was the best thing ever. But obviously, you're probably not going to have that. I don't know what it costs to get documents scanned. I mean, if you know someone who has a scanner where you can put in several pages at a time, mine does. I could do like say 25 pages because sometimes I'll get like someone will send me like a big massive, and it's like scan, and I'll do it and it continuously it makes it all into one big thing. Some have to do it page by page. That would be a nightmare. But yeah, and I would say when you send it, GC, it's going to cost, but I would send it with some sort of tracking, maybe priority mail because you get a tracking number, I think, and you could then look it up and make sure they got it. Because imagine if that gets lost in the mail. UPS is kind of pricey. I just recently sent a package to Minnesota. It was not heavy. It was like 2.4 pounds, and it was about this big. And I did it the cheapest way of UPS. Never again. It was over $30. So it's going to have to be USPS going forward. But yeah, you want to have proof these. Yeah, I know. I'm making it a little complicated for you, but I just have concern about people walking into the Social Security office. Double C says, I have a question. I'm up for a review in November for SSI. Which will I get, CDR or function report? Well, if you're up for review, this means you're getting SSI. Are you getting a financial review and they just want to know your living situation, or are you getting a medical CDR? Medical CDR, they could ask about the function report. So it's really hard to say because I'm not sure. I think they do with SSI. They do financial only ones that are not looking at, it's not part of your CDR. It's not a diary for CDR. It's just going over the financials to make sure you're still poor enough for the SSI or to the amount you're getting it. Lily says, thanks. I don't want to risk $300 a month when I was considered mine, but my mind is turning into applesauce. I get it. I don't think you have to worry, Lily. You didn't mention how old you are. The older you are, I think the safer you are as well. And you are mine. You are mine. So that's such a little tiny bit of work. I don't think you have to worry. That would be my, unless you see something glaring that you're not saying, I don't think it's a problem. Remember, they encourage us to work and better our lives if we do it in a manner when we're still disabled that follows the rules. And as long as we're still disabled and you have a mind, so they believe that you are not going to improve. And you're working very little hours, it sounds like. Very little. Like the amount that is very rare to be even be able to get. So I think you're probably okay. Yeah. Yeah, Maeve says, with the jury duty, what do you do for work? I evaluate accident reports to determine liability. Exactly, Maeve. That's so funny. Yeah, they're not going to want you in that car accident case. Rat's Nest. Asked a GP and neurologist for a cane script, and they both said, just go to the pharmacy or Walmart. How do I push for an actual prescription as evidence? What jerks. Sorry. Just say, actually, I need a, my insurance wants it to be medically necessary, so I need something from you to that effect. They're so lazy. What the heck is their problem? Sorry. But really, why can't they just do what you ask them to do? It's not like, unless they don't think you need one, in which case they tell you, oh, no, you have no limitations in walking or stability. Lily says, I'm afraid to try working for $300 a month, but it may not be worth it if I'm in my 60s with CDR. Oh, well, you're not going to get a CDR after 67 because you're going to be on retirement. You will no longer be on Social Security disability. Yeah, I think you're good. You're in your 60s. You're mine, all mine, and you're working so little. I wouldn't worry about the CDR. Yeah, if you're up in your 60s there, and you're mine, and you're still going to doctors, you're still doing all the things you need to do for your medical problems. I wouldn't be worried. Even with a CDR, most people fly through their CDRs, no problem. They just have to be reviewed. That's all. Yeah, double say it could be a medical CDR or it's not. It's a financial eval. Give me a second. I have to. Okay, that's a kid interrupting me. Rat's Nest, wording, thanks. Yay. Okay. Now I think we're really definitely at the bottom. We're at an hour and almost 40 minutes, 37 minutes, something like that. Any quick questions towards the end, guys, or should we call it a day? What do you think? I think we're good. All right. I will see you guys next week. Thanks for being here. And again, right now we're still at 9 o'clock in the morning with our dailies, but they are going to be moving to noon Eastern time. That way it'll be 9 o'clock for the California folks, and noon for us East Coasters. Okay. I appreciate you all being here very much. It really makes my week. It's my favorite day of the week, just being here with you guys. It's fun. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Hello again. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful, if not just a little bit informative. In the event you have a Social Security question you want addressed, please feel free to make a comment below and ask the question, even if nothing to do with this particular video. And just a quick, again, reminder, we have our daily video shares and tips around noon every day of the week. And on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our live Q&A session where you can come in live and enter your questions in the chat. And we all pretty much have a good time for an hour or two. I look forward to seeing you there, hopefully. And lastly, don't forget about our benefactor memberships. They're very reasonably priced. The first one is very nominal and you get a few perks, but on a bigger scale, it contributes to us being able to fulfill a mission of assisting certain people with representation that would otherwise not be able to get it. We look forward to continuing to do that. And so far it's working out like the bomb. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Bye-bye now.